Today we're going to do something quite different, but very important, I think. And the reason why I want to make this video is because we're coming into quite a busy time of year. Calving season is knocking on our doorstep. We won't find it coming, and then the busy springtime period will come directly after that. And in that period of time, on farms, farmers are extremely busy, and that tends to be the time when a lot of accidents happen on farms. And today's video isn't going to be a farm safety such video. It's going to be a kind of an understanding of some of the things that I've done, and these things have left me with life-changing injuries and as well as very close calls. We also have to remember that agriculture itself carries, unfortunately, the highest number of fatalities every year in a workplace environment. But one thing that doesn't get added up is the amount of serious injuries. You're working with animals, machinery and a lot of power tools, and believe it or not, all of those items have the potential to cause serious harm or death. I'm going to just share a kind of a diary of some of the things that has happened to me over the past few years, lessons that I've learned the hard way, and very, very lucky escapes that I've had. And we start off just with power tools themselves, because my last video was working on that little digger out there, and we use a lot of power tools on our channel. So the first thing I'm going to mention is an angle grinder. Angle grinders get mentioned a lot on the channel, and everybody, a lot of farmers will have a grinder of some sort. So one video I was making, I changed over from a brush head to a disc on this, and I didn't replace the guard. By not replacing the guard, a few people called me out, and rightly so. I got sent pictures of people who had horrific injuries and so on, and some of the pictures were quite graphic. But right, so since then I have always made sure that I have a guard on my angle grinder. Regardless of what type of angle grinder you're using, regardless of what type of blade, there's a guard on it. And with that as well, can't emphasize enough eye protection. There's several different types of eye protection you can get. This is a great one here because it seals right around your face with a foam and stops sparks from bouncing around. These are fine, all right? They'll cover you for the majority of stuff, and they're easy because you can keep them on your head the whole time and they don't cause you any discomfort. The only issue with them is, and this has caused me an injury, is that a spark can bounce in under your nose and can still get you in the eye. That has happened to me. And I have had an episode where I've been in the doctors with a piece of steel in my eye. Luckily, I didn't have to go to hospital because he was fit to remove it and put drops into my eye, which was excruciatingly sore. So this, or even better again, one of those. They are brilliant. Well, if you do any kind of repairs in your own farm, chances are you have a welder. Regardless if it's a stick welder or a MIG welder, it makes no difference. You can't emphasize enough that you must have a welding mask or a welding shield. So I did a bit of work for a farmer back about 20 years ago, an old farmer in an old slatted house, where I went in and I welded up old barriers and gates that he had that were falling apart. And I spent a full day working for him. When home was 100%. Into bed was 100%. 3 o'clock in the morning I woke up, which is something I will never forget. It was like as if someone just threw sand into my eyes. And the more I rubbed, the worse it got. And it was just unbelievable pain. That was because I had a layer of minute little blisters all over the surface of my eye. I never knew that welding could cause this because I'd been doing it for years and it never happened. But it was just the fact that I was welding for the full day. And it all came down to squinting. Doing this here as you try to strike an arc, especially with a stick welder is what I was using that time. Then when I get it going, I'd flip down the helmet and away I go. So I never forgot that. This one here self-tints. It's got a little solar panel just across the front of it. And it charges itself and it self-tints. So you're inclined to keep it over your face more. So when you go to strike that arc, you'll have it down over your face rather than flipping it up and down. Because that ultraviolet light can go through your eyelids and still burn your eyes. Quads are ridiculously handy on farms. I know in my location here, every second farm has a quad. But does every person have a helmet? Now, I can't be a hypocrite here and say I've put a helmet on from day one because I didn't. And I've never, thankfully, had an accident on a quad. But that's not an excuse, and it means absolutely nothing because you're only like that until you do have an accident. So when I started this channel, I had a helmet for my quad. The problem is I didn't wear it that often. And a few people did mention it to me in different videos, and rightly so again. It's just a matter of getting into a habit. You might feel awkward at first, but when you get used to it, you'll throw it on. I would say buy one that's comfortable, something that you're comfortable wearing. If it's too tight or too big, change it, get another one, and make sure they're an approved helmet of good quality and wear it. As I grew up, I've had a lot of motocross bikes. That's something I was into when I was younger. And I always pulled on a helmet. It felt natural to do. Everybody else was wearing one, and you felt like you needed it because you're watching others, and that influences you to do it. But also you felt like you needed one. You felt safer when you had one in your head because they're not stable. When you get on an ATV, you have 4 wheels, and you feel more stable. You feel like more of in that car environment. So that gives you a bit of false security. It is false security because they are dangerous. A lot of people don't like them, and I can fully understand that, but the reality is they're very common on farms, and they're common for the reason of their handiness, versatility, whether it's sheep farmers, whether it's hilly ground, cattle farmers, we all have them. So we need to treat them just with respect. It's like anything, no matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, it all has the potential in the wrong hands to cause you injury. On our 4270 that we used to have, I was at home and I was hooking on our Shear Grab one evening. Again, probably rushing, but hopping about. I was in my early 20s. I was fit to jump over the steps to get into the cab. I need to use them all now. But anyway, I was in the tractor one evening, and the Shear Grab can be, at that time, can be quite an awkward enough thing to get on. You have to jump on and off the tractor a few times. But I had a nasty habit of getting off the tractor the wrong way, and I still do an odd time, right? I still do. But I try my best to remember. To get off a tractor, you're supposed to turn around and back down the steps. Just exactly in reverse of what you done getting on. My phone rang, I picked my phone up, went to answer it, and as I was getting off the tractor, my foot went down here. I'll never understand why I didn't just throw the phone, but I didn't. And I didn't grab anything, and I went from this very top step, head force slam into the ground, with my 2 legs never left the top step. This one was caught, the other one down actually nearly behind the back wheel, and I face planted into the concrete. I lay there for half an hour afraid to move because all I heard was crack, and I didn't know whether I broke my back or broke my neck. I wasn't able to move, and I still had my phone in my hand. That was the thing. I didn't put my hands out to protect my face. I protected the old phone. Lay there for 30 minutes, maybe even more, and as time went by I started to move, and the pain seemed to be radiating mostly from my shoulder. Eventually got to my feet, and I've no power in this arm. Pins and needles, and it was mad hot as well. It felt hot. Not to touch, but just a sensation. So it was brought straight to the doctor, straight to hospital. She thought my collarbone was broke. Thankfully it wasn't. Monaghan General Hospital for a few hours, got an x-ray done, no broken bones, and was told badly bruised and kind of half sent home, which I was mad to get home. I was on painkillers, morphine, whatever it is called, and I was feeling great, and I just wanted to get home to milk because I was looking at the clock and it was 6:30 and I had no one else to milk and no one rang, so I just wanted to get home. But when I was going out the door, man, I made the biggest mistake ever. A nurse came after me and stopped me and said, I think you should go to Drogheda Hospital where they can do better scans of your shoulder. You may have tore a muscle in your shoulder. Just because there's no broken bones in an x-ray doesn't mean you haven't done other harm. So be no harm, just go over to Drogheda and get yourself checked out now. And of course, I didn't do that. I'm grand, is what I said. Be all right, put a bit of ice on it. It's all moving. It feels fairly loose enough. Be 100%. Until about a week after, the pain started to come back really bad. I had very little movement in the shoulder. It was quite swollen as well. So I went to my doctor and he told me I'm not remembering exactly which muscle it is, but it's the one that controls movement of your shoulder in a circular motion, was completely torn in half. You'll have to live with it now. He said you'll probably have to get pain injections over the years when arthritis sets in. If you had have went to Drogheda, a simple procedure of surgery would have fixed it, but you've left it too long, the muscle's gone dead, you can't repair it now. Tough luck. That's probably 12 or 13 years ago. Today, I can't work above my shoulder. I can't hold my hand up for any period of time or it will absolutely ache in the shoulder. Another thing is I can't hold my hand out straight like that. If anyone goes, it shakes now when I do it. But if anyone goes to put your finger in my hand will just push back down again. There's no strength there. I can lift anything, like plenty of strength that way. It's just certain movements. As well as that, I can't put my arm behind my back at all. And this shoulder sits, when I'm looking in the mirror, flexing my muscles, this shoulder sits a lot lower than this one. So my arm rubs tight against my side, which is uncomfortable at times too. I have to live with that one. Massive mistake. carelessness, rushing, something we all do, but the protocols you see now that are in place, and you learned at farm safety events or in agricultural college, they're there for a reason, and I learned what that reason was. So the next bit is where we stand here at the minute. Now this is a video I made before on what happened here, but if you're new to the channel you might not have heard it. But this is by far the worst thing that's ever happened, ever on our farm, and it involved the stock bull. This hill here, we used to graze with our cows in the summertime. After our second cut was done, we'd get 5 or 6 weeks of grazing out of this hill. But before this site was built behind me, where I stand here now, we used to have a gate here, just directly front this one. There used to be a small wee gate here and another little small gate on this side. So when our cows were here one particular evening, we had a heifer bull, and the bull made his way over to the gate and he was roaring across. He knew it, he could smell it. So I thought, before we take our cows home that evening, because we kept them at home at night and put them back over here in the daytime, that we'd leave the bull here. So we let him into the heifers, let him do the business, and then tomorrow I'll open the gates, let him back into the cows, and it'll save me a lot of hassle. So I opened the gate, opened this gate. My dad stood here to stop him going down the lane, and I went in about 20 yards just in there, and he didn't move. The gates were opened and he didn't run out. He was that type of docile animal at the time. So I walked in behind him and gave him a little pat in the back, just with my hand. As soon as I done that, he turned around just within an instant, and this animal was huge. He'd usually look like he was stiff as a poker walking down the field. You'd swear he could barely turn around in 10 seconds, never mind in the blink of an eye. And he hit me just underneath the hip. So he threw me about 10 to 15 yards. Into that drain is where I landed. And that in itself is the most unluckiest thing and the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. Because when I fell into that drain, it allowed me a chance to get away. Unfortunately for me was he followed me and he came down into the drain after me. We didn't have an electric fence that time in front of the drain, and it was a wee bit shallower than it is now, and he came down after me. And he hit me with his head again on the same leg and bent my leg sideways. I was in shock and the adrenaline was just pumping through me. I don't think I could feel any pain at that stage. But I managed to pull myself up across the hedge and roll out onto this laneway here. Now I'm just going to actually show you where it happened and the reason I was fit to get out. So here is the hole here. There was a tree here at that time, I think. I managed just to pull myself up through briars and stuff and roll onto this and get away from him, because he was going to kill me. So my father witnessed all this, thankfully, from the gate, because he was just about to go in to try and help me, which is just a natural reaction. And if he did, then you could have had 2 people that got severely injured or killed on the farm. And that's what happens, just a natural reaction to help someone when they're in that scenario. You don't think. But anyway, I got out and I crawled myself up. I was in agony of pain. I got on the quad somehow. I couldn't walk. I had no power in this leg at all. Dad had the tractor with him. He drove behind me and I got home, but I couldn't get off the quad. I just collapsed when I got to the house, and my wife came up, Sinead, and my mother came out, and they didn't know what had happened to me. I was covered in mud and dirt, my face was bleeding, and I was just crouched over on the quad in agony. Brought to hospital, and I had injuries, ribs and knee and a few things. But the moral of the story was, one of the main things that stays with me today is my second knee now that I have. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but your knee is not supposed to be there. So this big lad here is not a new knee, it's a new knee that grew. Probably in the years to come I am going to have to get that operated on. I was told to leave it alone for now. Just have to be careful now. I can't sit down on a chair no more. I have to stretch my leg out, because if I bend my leg and sit in a chair for any length of time, I'm screwed. I'll just go into spasm of pain, just like having a cramp in your leg. So it must be kept straight. Walking, stuff like that's thankfully fine, and everything else relatively healed well. But that day was the day that it almost ended, and you know, you think about it, of the consequences that might have come if that had happened. Things would have been a lot different here probably. Just one split decision. A happy day turned into a pretty bad day. Weird thing about it is, the day before, my dad walked that bull into the milking yard with his hand on his back. I remember it well. He turned his back to him, closed the gate, everything just right at his face. It just does make you think, even now thinking about it. If you're a farmer, there's a bloody good chance you own a chainsaw. I do a lot of chainsawing on my on my videos, and I have a lot of chainsaw videos coming up now. We're getting into that kind of era now where we're getting firewood ready for the year after. Why I planted this tree? Well, my dad cut this tree back about 30 years ago. And it's all ivy now, but there was a hell of a tree there at one stage. So we cut the tree straight across, or cut it at an angle, thinking that the tree would fall back into the field. It didn't fall back into the field, it fell across the road. It fell actually down on top of him. He was probably standing up on a bit of a bucket or something trying to cut it. When the tree fell, it hit the far side of the road, and it gave a jump here, so it did, up in the air, and fell down this side. Luckily enough, it still fell again the embankment, because he was dead on straight underneath it. And he did get trapped completely under the tree, and he couldn't get out. No mobile phones that time, so he was there for about an hour and a half before someone came along on this wee quiet road and got him out of there. But he fell on the chainsaw, right on top of the blade of the chainsaw. And thankfully, it had quit spinning by the time he fell, and he was damn lucky. Because if he had fell on it, or fell on a different way where it hit the trigger, well, you know what would have happened. If you fall in trees, be real careful. That's the most dangerous part of the whole lot. Maybe get someone in to help you, or do a course. Chainsaw courses are great. They're very, very interesting as well. But otherwise, get someone in for 5 minutes to toss the tree for you if you're anyway incompetent of doing that, because deadly dangerous, and it's well worth it. It's money well spent. But yes, chainsaws, Jesus, be wary of them. The reasoning behind me making this video was something I've been thinking about doing a long time. People who do what we do now, whether it's on YouTube or anywhere on social media, we do have a responsibility that we have to start thinking about people who are watching our videos, because I know there is a young audience. Whether it's eye protection, throwing on a helmet, whatever it is, if they see us doing it, maybe it will look cool to do it if we do it in the right way, and maybe as a result they'll say, well, I'm going to do the same. There's risks in no matter what environment you work in, and you can't wrap yourself in bubble wrap, and you will take chances. People always do, regardless of what they say. But maybe some of these chances, or some of these risks, can be lowered a little bit by just thinking about what you're doing before you do it, and just approach it maybe a slightly different way, because all them little changes you make can have, hopefully, a detrimental effect on the outcome. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.